Welcome to Africa Ascending Bites. This is a podcast series of short snippets where we hear the news, views and opinions of Mr. Udai Patel, CEO of Afro-Asian Insurance Services. Today, we're going to talk about war. Unfortunately, a subject that's very affecting all of us very closely now with the situation in the Middle East. So, Udai, can I introduce you, say welcome, and ask you for your opinion on what's going on in the Middle East, without getting too political, of course. I'm not asking you to do that. But, how is it impacting the African insurance market in your view?
Thank you, Liz. So obviously, this is a hot topic at the moment with what's going on in the Middle East, with the involvement of the US, Israel, Iran, the casualties in the states, the Sunni states surrounding Iran, and of course, the NATO members who are being pushed to join and resisting at the moment. It has already impacted Africa immediately. So immediately, the Strait of Hormuz was closed and under threat from Iran. The London market, the London marine market, and the Lloyd's market sent out NOC for
NOCs?
NOCs, notices of cancellation, immediate cancellation due to war. So there is a clause which says if war breaks out, there is immediate cancellation of cover. But the cancellation of marine cover was for vessels going through the Strait of Hormuz, not anywhere else. So you had a lot of tankers stranded there. Some have been destroyed, a lot of cargo ships, etc. Some of which were carrying the cargo from Africa. So when these NOCs were released, reinsurers in Africa immediately released their NOCs on the treaties, on the marine treaties. We had to push back in some cases because some of these notices of cancellation were blanket, all your marine cover is cancelled worldwide, that sort of thing. So we had to go back and educate the reinsurers who were clients of ours. And the result has been that there is another market that's sprung up in Lloyd's, which we are actively helping some of our exporters in Africa with. So those who want to export from Africa to anywhere in the Middle East, within the vicinity of the exposed area, there is a market that's quoting. Of course, there is a price. Yeah, there is always a price. And we have successfully quoted some business. And basically, the price is probably 10 or 15 times what it was for.
Wow.
But if you have to make that shipment to fulfill a contract and say it's $1 million contract, I think a few thousands in premium is worth it rather than losing that whole business altogether. So definitely that's one impact of the Middle East conflict. The other impact is the rise in the world price of oil. That is affecting the cost of aviation fuel, for example. It has a negative side and it has a positive side for Africa. So those countries in Africa that have their own oil resources and their own refining facilities, like Nigeria, should benefit if they handle it properly.
It's always the big if, isn't it?
Exactly. If they handle it properly. This is the time they can make good money, because already the world price of oil has doubled. And they could make a lot of money even selling to other countries, which are in desperate need. However, traveling around Africa by air is horrendously expensive now, because the airlines in Africa will undoubtedly be increasing their fares to cope for the rise in fuel prices. Airfares
in Africa were already pretty steep, weren't they? So that's bad news for everybody, really.
Well, I experienced this recently. So I was on a 2-week trip. I was starting off in the southeast part of Africa, and I had to go to the west. Now, as you know, traveling from east to west in Africa, you either got to go north or south, and it was pretty expensive to do that. And the only way I could shave off 25% of the cost was to overnight in Johannesburg. That was the only way. But it will go up even more because of the price of fuel. But also there is a more indirect long-term effect of this war. And that is that it's going to inflate cost of everything. And I think that's a global issue. We will feel it in our pocket, price of food, price of basically everyday cost of living, and which may have a multiplier effect in that if people have their cost of living increasing, they will want to be paid more. That's inflationary. So we'll wait and see.
Not the best of news, Udai, but I think we should stop there and let's see what happens, and maybe peace will break out quickly and it will get resolved. But thank you very much for today. As always, everybody, thank you so much for listening. To access these podcasts, as always, they're on afropublishing.com. They're on afro-asian-insurance.com. They're also available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So for today, thank you very much. And we will be back in a couple of weeks with our next snippet.